Hey, Liberty North, AP Psych. How are you this morning? Sorry that I'm late. Was at an FCA meeting with some awesome students leading that. So I'm a little bit late. And I've also realized that I have obviously made a mistake since I've already gotten emails about it this morning from several students, which is probably a good thing. So some of you have noticed on the in-class vocab assignment for chapter, it says in-class vocab assignment number 4. It was 10 out of 10, and then this morning I moved it up to 20 points because basically I was wanting to put all of the vocab assignments moving forward. So development, personality, social psych, disorders, and abnormal and treatments in there. So it would be like worth 50 points, kind of like we do before. And people are already turning in their chapter 15 vocab assignment, which is awesome. So I moved it up to 20 points and then gave those people 20 out of 20, and everybody else 10 out of 20. And everybody else's grade would move to 20 out of 20 when you get the chapter 15 vocab in. However, obviously that's creating some issues and some questions. So probably not the best way to do it. It was the best way for me to keep track of who's turned in what. But I'll just go ahead and make a separate category for that, and we'll just do it that way moving forward. So I will correct that by the end of the day. So I think within 5 minutes of doing it, I had 2 emails. And then just getting off the FCA meeting, I have 6 more emails. So good job, students, noticing that. Can't get anything past you guys, okay? So good job. All right, so if you want to get out your chapter 15 lab, we're going to try, what I'm going to try to do is show you, you're going to take the Thematic Apperception test, and then we're going to do an ink blot, okay? And both of these, I know the TAT, the Thematic Apperception test, this actually is one of the pictures that was used. On the test, a famous one. It's one that you kind of see if you're doing ink blot tests. Okay, so write down number 7, whichever one. So what you need to do is look at this picture, okay, and then you're going to write a little story about this picture. Okay, so I'll just hold it up here and relax. Works well. All right, look at the picture, and then what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to just start writing. Okay, so you need to just start writing. And again, you need to write the first things that come to your mind. So you're not allowed to just look at the picture and kind of contemplate or think on it. You're just supposed to start writing. Okay, all right, and then you just have a few minutes to write your story. I'll get to the questions. Okay, while you're writing. Caden, everything is due on the 17th of April, so make sure you check Canvas there. No, Allie, you do not, nor does anybody have an F on the in-class vocab assignment number 4. Oh, okay. All right, so let's start over. So it's just, I got Julia, we missed it. Okay, so number 7, I think is what we're on. So this is the Thematic Apperception test, okay? So this is gonna be a projective test, right, that we talked about yesterday. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna show you a picture that is actually one of the old Thematic Apperception tests pictures. So it's kind of cool. It's one that they've actually used before and now they've gotten rid of, all right? Now what's gonna happen is as soon as I show you the picture, you can look at it, but then you need to really just start writing, and you're gonna write a story about the picture, okay? So you're gonna write a narrative for the picture that you see, all right? So you're gonna just describe and write a story and just write it kind of as it comes to your mind very quickly. So you're not allowed to contemplate or think, you just gotta start writing, okay? All right, so here is the picture. Okay, And go ahead and start writing your story. You only have a few minutes to write. So you're supposed to just be writing things that come to your mind quickly. Again, not thinking. Well, you are thinking unconsciously, but not pondering or deliberating. Just start writing. Okay. All right. I think I'm supposed to give you 3 minutes on that. I can't remember. So that's what I kind of gave you. All right. So now what you need is look at the story that you wrote, and actually the analysis is you are writing about yourself. Okay. So you have just wrote a little narrative about yourself and about your personality. Okay. Now, so I'll let you interpret that, and you can kind of go from there. Again, it's your unconscious mind. But if you look at the picture, what you're going to see is it is kind of written to be vague in some aspects. So most people perceive a boy, but you can also perceive a girl. Most people perceive a violin or some type of instrument that he's looking at, but some people perceive a book, that he's reading a book. So all of the TAT pictures are meant, so they're projective tests, because what they're meant to do is to be a little bit ambiguous so that you project yourself, your personality onto the picture. So that in most of the tests, you start writing about you and different personality traits, aspects of your personality, or different situations. Okay. So this one, you don't need to read it, but again, in class, it's really fun because we do it and then students read it, and it's just like they're just describing themselves perfectly. And the way that they feel, most of the time, the way that you feel now currently is going to come out. Yeah, that's the TAT. And if you go, figure out, there we go. Okay. All right. So you can go back and just put down myself. And actually, if you Google thematic apperception test and just do images, you're going to get a bunch of older thematic apperception test images, and they're great to give to somebody else. Like, just pop it up on your computer and say, write about this story, or write a story about this picture, and then they write, and then you can tell them. The boy one is generally, if there's any picture with one image in it, like one person in it, the result or the analysis is pretty much about you. It's about yourself. Now, there are some images that have more than one person in them. Those get a little more complex, but you can pick any image. This is the one I always use with a boy. You can pick any image. So write down number 8. Okay. Write down number 8, and this will be an ink blot. So I'm going to give you an ink blot test, which is the Rorschach Inkblot test, which has been around for a long time. Definitely a projective test. So I'm going to show you an ink blot. So it's actually an ink blot. It's not a picture of anything, but you will perceive things based on your personality and your unconscious mind. Okay, so you're projecting yourself onto the picture. Now, one caveat here, one disclaimer: these tests are very successful with children and with criminals. Okay, so those are the two populations that most likely take a Rorschach Inkblot test. Now, they can be given to many people, but again, it's subjective. But I didn't show a study this year on MAO, but they did a study on bullfighters and risk-taking behavior. So back when we talked about perceived images that were in action, that were adventurous, that were kind of risky type of things. So again, your analysis is going to be in what you see. Okay, so with that, I don't want to spoil too much more. So here's one of the world famous Rorschach Inkblots. Okay, and then I'm going to give you a minute, and you're just going to write down everything you see or perceive in the inkblot. Okay. And it doesn't have to be the entire picture. It can be certain aspects of the picture, so on and so forth. I'm going to touch it. And again, you're supposed to write down the first things that come to your mind. So again, it's free association, accessing your unconscious. Okay, and you're just supposed to keep listing anything that comes to mind. So you're supposed to keep staring at it for a minute. Okay. All right. So now the analysis of that again is you basically are, the animal or what you see is related. So they have a whole results page, which obviously I don't have access to for the Inkblot test. But basically, the images that you see represent aspects of your personality. So now what they're going to say is probably the images you see at the beginning are more your conscious, but then or more unconscious. But then as you go, again, you might actually get more at your unconscious, more deeper into the unconscious mind, or you might slip into the conscious mind a little bit more. So you kind of have to weed through what are the unconscious images, what are the conscious images. Generally, like most people see the butterfly, right? Okay. So that's actually what it looks like. So that would be a conscious response. Okay. Now, if you see, like I saw a shark, I see two shark heads sticking out of the side. So that's a shark head there. And same on the other side. That would be an unconscious answer because, that's not really what it looks like necessarily. That's just what I'm perceiving, which is an aspect of my mind, my unconscious mind coming out. Okay. So not only that, they have results based on, like my results would be different because I didn't see it from the whole picture. It's only certain parts and it's on the outsides of the picture. Okay. And I know that has something to do with extraversion, hint, hint. So that probably is pretty accurate for me. On somebody who is certified on the Inkblot, Rorschach Inkblot test that can give it. And he gives some insights into how they standardized it and then how they researched it, so on and so forth. So it's actually very, very cool. So, but what you see is describing an aspect of your personality. So again, you are describing yourself in both of the tests. I think the TAT is a little bit more accurate based on giving it to students in the past. They actually they end up describing a situation or things that are happening in their life right now, feelings that they have, so on and so forth. Okay. So, and then this one's the same thing. It's just more specific based on the Inkblot. So if you saw a butterfly, you just cross that one out because that's what it looks like. We are interested in the pictures that come forth that don't necessarily consciously are brought out by the picture. Okay. I also saw Mothman prophecies, which that looks like if you research that, which is a very psychological. It's made into a movie. It's in West Virginia. It's a pretty neat phenomenon and story, but that's kind of what it made me think of, which there's probably some unconscious interpretation then as well for me. Okay. All right. So, the best analysis I can give you is for the thematic apperception test. You're looking at yourself. Inkblot just wanted you to experience it. Actually, in class, I have one. It looks like a bat. Yeah, that was so good cadence. That'd be a conscious. So that's representing your conscious mind because it does look like a bat. So you try to find the pictures that don't necessarily fit, that aren't necessarily what you would think it would be. Okay. All right, so we're going to do AP learning target number 4 today, and then we will be done with our 5 learning targets. Okay, so you'll have everything you need for chapter 15. Now, we will continue on with personality at least on Monday for sure. So I'm going to have my whole family is taking all of the tests. So they're taking the Big 5, the Myers-Briggs, which my kids have already taken the Myers-Briggs, the Enneagram, and then they also took the character personality match. And so we're going to talk about those results. Now, we're not going to discuss mine because that's part of your scavenger hunt. Although there is a hint today in the video and in the thumbnails. I sent out a pic last night. I'll send out another pic tonight and tomorrow night, or tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. And then also, if you join late, again, I made a mistake. So I put, I've had 8 emails this morning already. I changed it this morning. So I changed the in-class vocab grade from out of 10 to out of 20. And then everybody who was turning in their 15 vocab, I was just putting it in there. That just is a better way for me, but obviously that's going to create some issues. So I'm going to take that out. I'll finish that. I'll fix that. I'll take that out, and then I'll move it and just label it Chapter 15 in-class vocab. Okay, so I'll take care of that. All of your personality stuff is due not tomorrow, but the following Friday. And then always remember, Fridays, no live stream. It's just a work day. Contact me if you need me, but I know that you have work to do. Okay? All right. Caden, your Chapter 15 assignments aren't due till the following Friday. So yes, so you still got over a week. So you're good. Look on Canvas. Okay? All right. So learning target number 4. Okay, so we were talking about culture and its impact on personality. All right, so we'll go down here, and then there's a couple of theories down here we need to, and I'll take a picture of it as always. Okay, so culture impacts on personality, and then self-concept is also the learning target. So again, remember, self-concept is my understanding of who I am. It's kind of my identity, understanding who I am and what my personality is. So personality is a huge part of self-concept, okay? Remember that culture is nurture, all right? So when we talk about culture, we're talking about environmental factors, right? And culture obviously is a big part of my environmental influence on who I am and my personality and my self-concept, okay? All right? All right, and again, culture is beliefs, customs, norms, traditions in society, all right? So let's just start there, okay? So each society, each culture has unique beliefs, customs, norms, and traditions that obviously then impact our personality and then also our sense of self, because our sense of self is based on our culture, okay, where we live. And there's also some great studies here. Actually, it depends on what part of the United States you live in, okay? So as we've done tests, and we know that people that live in different parts of the United States actually have emphasized different personality traits. So it's actually pretty interesting once we get down here, okay? All right? So different cultures score differently on major personality, different cultures, different societies. What they have found is that westernized cultures, and they actually put mainly Europe, score much higher on neuroticism, okay? So again, we all have neuroticism, according to the Big Five, in our personality. It's just a degree of it. It's a spectrum. So again, the Big Five are openness, agreeableness, conscientiousness, extraversion, and neuroticism. So they're going to give you a score on that. So like on openness, you might be hardly exist whatsoever. Okay. But also what they have found is that every culture, country, so on and so forth, actually has personality traits that they emphasize more and that actually score higher. Okay. All right, now, and this is a great study here in the United States that was done. Depending on where you live in the United States, you emphasize different or prioritize different personality traits and actually rate yourself differently. So the East Coast actually rate themselves more higher in stress, irritability, and temperamentalness. Okay. All right. So now you can kind of figure out if some of these stereotypes, depending on where you live in the United States, are actually accurate or not. The Midwest, which would be us, we actually score higher in friendliness and traditional values. And that actually extends down to the South a little bit too. And then the West are more relaxed, creative, and non-traditional, okay, which I think makes perfect sense based on stereotypes. I will say this is the East Coast and Texas, which is kind of unique. And then this would be upper and middle Midwest, and this would be most of the West Coast here, okay? So not only are these reported higher, but these are actually valued a little bit more. It's just kind of considered the way of life in these different areas, okay? So I know some of you have traveled, and we've talked about how, you know, certain states, life is just faster, okay? It's more involved, so on and so forth. You have more of your creativeness over here, non-traditional, okay? And then the Midwest is known to be pretty family-oriented, value, to be friendly, which according to the research is kind of has panned out, okay? Which is actually very, very, very interesting, okay? All right. Then we also talked about in the book the difference between individualistic cultures and collectivistic cultures. And that's been a big theme throughout the book. And that depending on which culture your country is, you have set personality traits that are going to come from that. So again, we are individualistic, so we value self over everything. So again, like we talked about in our language, there's more personal pronouns, more references to me than any other language. Okay, Asian cultures, South American cultures, you know, who view family or unity as the most important thing are here, okay? Now, you can always see that there'd be a whole separate personality profile. Actually, collectivistic cultures tend to be a little more introverted because they just kind of stay within their family, okay? Individualistic cultures tend to be more extroverted, which that's something that you might not know. You might think it's the opposite, but just an example there. So with individualistics, again, it's about my relationships, my meeting people, me going outside of family to make relationships, you know, that type of thing. So not only does it affect personality and my self-concept, it also affects my development, okay? All right, now, there's 3 theories that you need to know down here, okay? On approaches to studying personality and culture. Okay, so we can take 3 different types of approaches. Number 1, we can look at the cultural comparative model, which is basically when we take our culture and we, so like the Big 5 personality test is a westernized culture test, all right? So we give it to ourselves, but then we also give this westernized test to other cultures and have them take it and see what they score, okay? See what happens, okay? Indigenous approach is basically when we're just going to look at the other cultures' tests, personality tests, you know, what they always have their own thing. So instead of using our stuff, we're going to look at what they score on their tests. Okay, so instead of taking the Big 5 personality test to China and having Chinese people take it, which we could do, we're actually then going to look at the results from their own personality tests. So the tests that are developed and made in China and given to the Chinese people. And I just picked China out of the blue, okay? All right, and then there's the combined approach, which is pretty obviously. So I'm gonna give them, so in China, I'm gonna give them our Big 5 personality test, which is a westernized culture test. And then I'm also gonna give them one of their tests, and I'm gonna look at how that reports, okay? And then hopefully what we find is that they both pretty much match or overlap, kind of like a Venn diagram. Both tests might emphasize different things because, again, not everything in the Big 5 is of big importance to Chinese people, okay? So, again, we think it does, but again, it's based on our culture. It's standardized on our culture, right? Okay, so that standardization process is on westernized cultures. You know, if we standardize it on Eastern cultures or China, or if we send it to Russia, you know, we're going to have different answers, okay, that are standardized. Now, a great analogy is movies, okay? So cultural comparative with movies would be movies that were made, filmed, created in the United States, and then are shown in other cultures, okay? So if we go like to the Rise of Skywalker, okay, or any big recent movie, you know, it's obviously filmed with westernized culture, westernized stories. It's influenced by our culture. We're going to show it in America. It's obviously going to be very popular, okay? But then we're also going to show it in China and Russia. And we'll see, not as popular, but if it is popular, okay? Then with the indigenous approach, we're going to look at a movie that is actually made by that culture in that culture, and we're going to see how popular it is in that culture, okay? Because if you travel abroad, you know that there is actually a Star Wars version, Chinese version, like they basically create their own Star Wars universe, and and it's in movies, okay? Just like, you know, some of your very popular TV shows that are westernized, their complement in whatever countries that they have. Okay. My wife and I are big fans of the X-Files, which is an old series, sci-fi series, but there's actually a Japanese version of that. It's a different name. It's filmed and created and written all in Japanese and by Japanese culture. So it's different. Okay. So it's not the westernized version of it or the United States version of it. It's the Japan version of it. Okay. Their own version. So everything that we have, every culture is probably going to have its own version of it. And so we would look at that. So Big Five, let's see how Japanese people score on the Big Five. And then let's look at their own personality tests and how they're scoring. Okay. Okay. Cooper asks, what about the South? So the South, Cooper, except for Texas, is viewed kind of right here. Okay, so it's upper and lower Midwest. So it's kind of in that Midwest. And then if you get south and east, you're here, and south and west, you're there. Okay, but Texas, as we know, is its own country. Okay, and they kind of they go here. Okay, for some reason. Okay. All right, then the combined approach is when I look at both. Right, I'm going to give the Big Five to Japan, and then I'm going to look at their own personality test results, and then I'm going to combine them and look at both. Okay. Yes. Peyton, good question. Would Hawaii and Alaska be their own? Trying to think on where I got this information on. They had like a picture of the United States. I'm trying to think if Hawaii and Alaska were on there. I might have just missed them. So I know that they're going to be one of these three categories. Yes, they'd be actually one of these three because they didn't say fourth category would be this and this. These are the three categories, and kind of everybody fit in it. So yeah, that's a good question. I think I either missed that. I'm sure they had data on that. We could probably guess Hawaii, right? I think Hawaii would easily be west. Alaska, I don't know. I would say east, just based on the demographics and kind of what you hear. Highest amount of alcoholism in Alaska, attempted suicides in Alaska. Now, again, a lot of that is culture based because it is kind of its own country. I mean, they have different seasons and different weather phenomenon that none of us in the United States experience. So that could be that as well. Okay. Also, I know though Hawaii has some of this. Hawaii is very, very traditional and they are very friendly. So, yeah, that's a very good question. Okay. All right. So this would be what you need to use for course or learning target number 4. So, and a lot of it we've already covered. Obviously, by now you should absolutely know that culture influences our behavior, our personality, our intelligence. And then also know that each culture, kind of like we talked about intelligence, has its own personality test as well. So, there's a WACE for the United States. There's a WACE for the China culture, which again is different than our test, okay, which would be indigenous. A combined approach would be some of it is Western, some of it is Eastern, and we give it to people, okay? This research, and then know your three different approaches, okay? Which we need all three approaches because we need to know, we need to see culture from all three different aspects. So from our culture, other indigenous cultures, and then also a combined view, okay? All right. So in essence, depending on where you come from, sets the foundation for your personality profile and what is valued and what is promoted in society. So again, we have norms. So we know that if we give somebody from the United States a personality test, most likely these traits are going to pop up. Those are the core traits, right? So now we disagree on what those are, but we definitely know that we're going to have a degree of extraversion introversion. Now, studies on that are very unique. It used to be massively extroverted. So in the United States, significantly more people. I remember when I was in college in the 1990s, early 90s, we were all extroversion in the United States. Now, actually, the introverts are becoming more popular and more prevalent because of technology. It's more of an internalized world. So they think technology has a lot to do with that, and also the way just that our culture has shifted. So again, cultures can shift and they can change based on priorities and norms, but that's a great one. They also know that if you go to optimism, pessimism, we used to be very optimistic. Now pessimism is kind of growing. I don't think it's caught optimistic, but I know pessimism has grown also in our culture as well. So those are kind of two shifts that we're having in personality. Okay. All right. Any questions? Again, no page numbers on culture because it's kind of woven throughout the entire chapter. So, and I see the confusion there because it was chapter 4 and in 4. Okay. So bad decision on my part. So I'll pull that out and I'll respond to all the emails. So kudos to Riley Birkland, who noticed it first. So she knew it in about 5 minutes since I did it. So yeah, good job. Okay. All right, any questions? So then Monday, again, no live stream tomorrow. Monday we'll live stream and we'll just kind of talk about what kind of, just do some interviews with some of my family members just based on the personality test, the ones they liked, so on and so forth, okay? So on your chapter 15 lab, you have the Myers-Briggs with a link, the Enneagram, which you have a link, and then Jada did send me her video. It's quite lengthy, so I'm gonna upload it to my YouTube channel. I'm gonna try to get that done today. So, there are links where you can take each of those tests, and then you have to fill out your chapter 15 personality lab. And then you get to pick one of your own as well, which I have links to the Big 5 and also the links to the character match personality test. Okay. Don't forget about the scavenger hunt, which is also due. Basically, it's open until I get 3 correct answers. So it's basically technically the scavenger hunt will be going on till the end of class, May 22nd. And then I will reveal the answers there. And yeah, so again, very thankful and excited to watch Jada's interpretation, information presentation of the Enneagram. Again, she is very well versed in it. She does a great explanation for it. And the Enneagram is very, very complex. It's very complicated. So even comment on that video, contact Jada if you have questions on that. But again, so 9 and 10 are the Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram. And then 11 is you get to pick your own. Okay. All right. Any questions? Are we good? Okay. You guys have a good weekend. Again, no live stream tomorrow, and I'll see you on Monday. Oh.